Hello, guys. Welcome back to Tales from the Longbox. It is time for Paul's pull list for the week. Before we get started, I do want to remind everybody there's still the opportunity. If you will just follow the link and leave us a voice message, you will be the winner of the giveaway for the two Doom shot glasses. And I probably should post a picture of those on Twitter or put it in the YouTube video, something to let people see what they look like. But they're super cool. They look like shotgun shells. All you got to do is leave us a voice message. Somebody has to do this, for Pete's sake. Somebody has to leave us a voice message. We're desperate to know what this feature actually does and how it works. So
please, because I'm going to steal them if you don't. I mean, frankly, two shotgun shell shot glasses. I'm going to party with those if you don't take them.
Yeah. And we don't want Paul to end up with them. Okay, it's just a spiteful thing, but we don't want Paul to have them. So, yeah, somebody needs to get these things.
It does lend to a lot of good commentary on my part if I partake of the ingredients you put in shot glasses. But little problem with the wife, not happy when I do that. Yeah, I don't do that.
We're pondering the Paul's drunken pull list episode at some point.
Oh, it would be something, folks. Let me tell you. Incidentally, that's how I cook. The drunker I get, the better my grilling ability is.
Yeah. It's one of the rejected show concepts, Paul's drunken pull list and Paul's pull my finger list. Those are the ideas that we just said, no, we're not gonna do this.
Pull my finger list and grilling did not go together. dangerous, folks.
All right, so that's my little testimony about that. Just somebody please do this. Please send us a voice message.
Come on. We want to hear from you. Come on.
All right, Paul, give us your top 5 comics coming out this week.
Top 5 comics coming out this week was kind of tough. I'll be honest. This week, after last week, I had high hopes of last week. And I'll be honest, I haven't read all my comics from last week because I started getting bogged down with some of the stories I was reading, and it was a drag. Last week was kind of a drag, and I'm afraid it's tainted my list this week. But I still have 5 that my opinion is are going to be pretty good. My first one is, if you guys are on YouTube watching, you can see my background, so you can probably guess. Is Daredevil number 27. This is because a few weeks ago I recommended Daredevil 26, and I was not disappointed in that at all. I thought it's a King in Black tie-in. You have the Venom Devil, or the Daredevil being taken over by a symbiote, and you have Elektra trying to just be Daredevil and handle Hell's Kitchen and all the bad things going on there. To me, very interesting read. I could actually enjoy having an Elektra comic as Daredevil, just ongoing, because they seem to be doing a good job about it.
Yeah, I agree. That was top of my list as well. You recommended that, and I'm not a regular Daredevil reader, and picked that one up, and that was the top-notch comic. That was one of the real highlights of the week that came out. And just to piggyback on what you're saying about this week in general, it was a struggle. It was a struggle to find 5 that I was excited about. Not like the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, it's been hard to find 5 because there were so many, and you had to whittle it down to 5. This week, it was more like, man, can I make 5 that I'm really excited about? And yeah, no, we'll see.
There are good ones this week. I mean, there are good ones, but as far as excitement goes, well, let's get on to number 2. Number 2 is Dark Detective number 3. I've been singing the praises, we both have, of Dark Detective as far as one of the Future State comics. It's been one of the mainstays because of the Batman storyline, but I'll be honest, it's not the Bruce Wayne Dark Detective storyline that puts this on the list. It's the backup story of the Grifter. Grifter is one of those iconic characters from the Image universe that's made a transition to Wildstorm, which was bought by DC and now is in a DC comic. And Grifter in the Batman universe just seems pretty perfect to me. The only thing to be better is if we had the Wildcats in here somewhere too.
Yep.
But I'm down with the Grifter backstory on this, and frankly, I don't even remember what happened to the last Grifter story. I just want to see more Grifter. That's all it takes for me. I'm sure I'll go back and be reminded, but
yeah, there was a lot of humor in that issue, and just Grifter being Grifter, and that's
humor and action. That's a good, if when done right, excellent combination.
Yep, that one was number 2 on my list as well. I do really enjoy the Bruce Wayne story though, and how it ties into the full Gotham future state timeline. This one, I think you're going to get Bruce hanging out with the next Batman, and that'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. So I'm excited about the main story as well.
I'm not unexcited, but I just was more of a Grifter fan, just to be honest.
Right.
In this issue.
Gotcha.
All right, my third on the list. I'm still playing in Gotham. I'm going with Robin Eternal, only because I've always been kind of a Robin fan, but I wasn't a rabid fan. Tim Drake was my favorite Robin. And because let me clarify that. My favorite Robin is Tim Drake, but my favorite back character is Nightwing. I mean, he was Robin, he was the original Robin, people know, but I like him as Nightwing, and that's actually my favorite back character. I've always I have a Nightwing shirt on now, just coincidentally, that's what I come home from work and put on just because I dig it. But Robin Eternal,
he's got Tim Drake underwear on too, so but he's not going to show that.
When I wear underwear, it's Tim Drake underwear, yes. My wife encourages I wear it as often as possible.
Yeah.
Bryan, is that the heebies or the jeebies I see on your face right now? Could be a little both.
It's both. They're coming together in unity on my face right now to show how they feel about things.
Well, at least we have some unity going on. Whereas Robin Eternal, Robin had unity with death. He met the Grim Reaper, and he died, and he's back. Evidently, there's some kind of drug running around out there that uses the Lazarus serum. So I'm interested in this comic because Robin comes back from the dead, and he's jacked, out of his mind, jacked, and his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, Spoiler, whatever she is right now, got to try to calm him down and keep him from doing something stupid. So I'm interested in that to continue the Gotham storyline, and I just want to see Robin jacked.
I'm just glad that somebody finally went ahead and did it, right? They just went ahead and said, let's kill somebody, let's kill a superhero in a comic, and not even wait until the end of the issue to bring him back. Don't
even leave the page.
Yeah.
Start at the top left-hand corner, by the bottom right, he's up.
Yep.
Just it's a common comic book running gag as it is. You die, you're back. Everybody comes back at some point somehow. Just speed the process along,
Yeah.
Put the express lane in here, folks. We're trying to get out of here 10 hours or less.
Right. I mean, the next one I'm really looking forward to is for someone to reboot within the same issue, reboot their entire universe, and like start with like Batman's origin story, reboot mid-issue, and retcon his entire origin story by the end of the issue. That'd be great if they could do that.
That sounds like almost every issue of Hawkman the last 10 years. Hawkman had, if you want to know his origin story, if you're as old as we are, we remember this thing called the Encyclopedia Britannica. It was a list of like 27 giant books that was the Google before there was Google. Imagine that, but that's his origin story. Just his origin story.
His origin story is actually unknowable. Like it's part of that whole principle in science where the minute you understand his origin, then it changes. It changes so that because no one can actually know his origin. So it's like observing, a particle. It changes when you observe it. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we're talking about Robin dying and coming back. Well, speaking of dead and loving it, I'm going to go for my surprise pick, Morbius. Bond of Blood #1.
Huh.
I've always been a big Morbius fan, and this has nothing to do with the current Marvel storyline. This is a standalone Morbius title that goes along with just Morbius, not Spider-Man, nothing like that. It's just Michael Morbius and his sins of his past to come back to haunt him. His lab partner, when he was in college, helped him develop the serum that was supposed to cure his rare blood disease and turned him into the living vampire. That was Morbius's first victim. Well, his son has now come down with a rare blood disease, and Morbius is going to try to kill him. Kill him? Did I say that? I meant cure him, but, well, we'll see how Morbius handles the bloodlust.
Right.
Morbius has an upcoming movie coming out whenever, the pandemic goes away and we have movies again. But Morbius has always been one of those anti-heroes, minor villains / anti-heroes of the Spider-Man universe that I've always loved. Morbius, a living vampire. I think it'll be a good one, folks.
All right, that's an off-the-wall choice. I like that one.
Yeah. And finally, I always try to pick one independent, and I had two of them. Bryan and I kind of discussed this before the show. So inadvertently, I think we kind of split on our choices. But I chose the Image comic Radiant Black. It's an issue 1. The cover is what caught my eye. It's just really cool. And when you read the description of it, it's kind of like Power Rangers meets Invincible, which I love the Invincible series. And the comic just has a nice, seems like it's setting up to be pretty cool. 30-year-old man, 30-year-old person, doesn't say exactly man, but the name sounds male, so we're going to go with man. 30-year-old dude, trying to hold down 2 jobs, not doing it well. Credit card debt piling up, so he's in debt. He's hurting. His only solution is to move back home with his parents. It's what everybody really wants to do once they move out on their own, is move back home with their parents. I'm not shaming that. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but that's where this guy's at. And along the way, he finds something that's called the Radiant, which gives him fantastical cosmic powers. All his dreams are coming true, except the powers don't belong to him, and the people, the creatures or beings that created are coming back for him. So that, to me, that sounds like an interesting setup for a new Image superhero comic. So I'm looking forward to giving it a chance.
Yeah, I agree. That was I put that one on my list as well. I think that's and I'm like you. The cover was the thing that grabbed me first as well.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Now,
almost Tron-like.
As we will discuss here in a few minutes, that's not always an indicator of the goodness of a comic, but we'll get. So, a couple of different ones on my list to throw in there as add-ons. The other comic that you waffled on with Radiant Black was Black Hammer Visions by Dark Horse. This is the first issue of it coming out as well. Always a good thing to jump in on the first issues and see how they look. It's just an interesting thing because they're kind of taking a different look at some of the characters from Black Hammer with new teams of writers and artists, and some of them are a little oddball. Patton Oswalt is actually the author for the first issue. So kind of curious to see how that turns out, just as a novelty.
Well, he had plenty of time. He was a toll booth operator in Queens.
Okay, so Paul briefly was frozen by the powers of evil and sent back into the Phantom Zone, but we were able to retrieve him somewhat reluctantly, but we did. We retrieved him, and you don't talk about Patton Oswalt. Don't make jokes about Patton Oswalt, Paul.
Evidently, Zod and his Phantom Zone projector is a big Patton Oswalt fan.
Yeah.
Well, I stand corrected.
Yeah. If you followed Zod and Patton Oswalt on Twitter, you would know that. But
yeah.
So anyway, back to the whole concept of Black Hammer Visions. Patton Oswalt's doing this issue. Next month is Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns and Golden Age type heroes should go well together. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that whole thing turns out.
I predict him doing Abraham Slam, because that's a real golden age hero type character. I mean, they all are, but I predict him either writing a Black Hammer himself story or an Abraham Slam story.
Yeah, I'd say you're right. I also included the Future State Green Lantern comic, and that's an odd choice for me because I wasn't a fan of the first issue, to be honest. But I have to know what's going on. I'm invested in this whole Future State thing by this point, and they've all referenced the fact that the Green Lanterns aren't around, or that the Green Lanterns are, they can't use the rings, some major disaster that happened, but we don't know what that is. And I think this is the issue where they're going to explain what happened and why the Green Lanterns are in the state that they're in. So just for the sake of having to know what's going on, I'm going to read this issue.
I'll definitely read it also, and I'm a huge Green Lantern fan. I wasn't exactly. I didn't hate the first Future State Green Lantern, but it was lacking to me. But I didn't. I think I was on record as liking it. Okay, so
yeah,
I'm gonna read this one again. I'm probably more excited about the Green Lantern season 2, the more ongoing Grant Morrison title. Which, if people have listened to me talk in the past and Bryan talk, they know we're not big Grant Morrison fans, but done a very good job with the Green Lantern series here. So,
yep, I agree. When it comes to enjoyment factor, I expect to enjoy reading Morrison's Green Lantern much more than reading this Future State Green Lantern issue. But the completist in me has to know what's going on. I have to see where this is going.
Well, I agree.
So, back before Paul was briefly imprisoned and we had technical issues, we mentioned that a cover doesn't always indicate the true worth of a comic. As much as they can be eye-catching and grab your attention and make you think, hey, I want to read this, it doesn't always turn out to be something really good. That's the danger with Radiant Black, is that really the cover is what initially grabbed us both.
Yep.
As did the cover for Deep Beyond #1 from Image. I spoke briefly about it on the Weekly Roundup show, but I wanted to get Paul's feedback on this as well, to see if this was just me being, too picky about the first issue, or, what. So, Paul, what was your overall impression of this comic? Did you like it, or was it a no-go?
My overall impression is, it was, I mean, it was fine. When your wife says, "Was it good?" No, it's fine. I'm fine. That's usually a red flag. It's like fine, good, well, all those hot button words.
Yeah, that fine is not really fine. Yeah.
Yeah, the comic cover looks epic. I mean, it looks like a diving suit, kind of a mech suit, sort of, with octopus tentacles, kraken tentacles. You don't know what. Your imagination goes wild.
Yeah.
Then the comic, when you read it, it's the world is. I don't know how to describe it. It just wasn't interesting. It the story didn't flow good. It's they kind of jumped around a little bit. I just can't put my finger on it, but it didn't catch my imagination. It didn't catch my interest quite the way I thought it would.
Yeah, the interior art was okay. I mean, it was nothing groundbreaking, but it was
average. It was just average. It's better than I can draw. I can't draw at all. I wish I could, but it's for an artist, for a comic, it's average.
Yeah, the issues really, I think, were in the story more than anything else, and the pacing was off. Like you said, it jumped around a lot. It didn't try to explain itself at all. Here's our first look into this world, and you're thrown into it. And sometimes that's okay if you're thrown into it, but like it made no effort to explain what was going on in any kind of real, normal method. And so the thing, like, there's a woman in the beginning, and something happens to her, and then her twin sister shows up at the end of the book like that's some massive revelation, and we're supposed to gasp when we see that this twin sister has been revealed, but we're not invested in either of these characters yet.
No, I mean, I was just like, all right,
Yeah, that's
twin
too soon.
sister.
You've made your grand reveal too soon. We don't know them, so we don't care.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything that made me care about the characters
Yeah.
enough to bring me back for a second issue. Now, like Bryan said, give them two, see what you go from there. I will give it a second issue, but unless it blows my socks off, this is probably the last fine folks will hear me sing the praises or even talk about it.
Yep. Yep. I agree. We, you were probably smarter when we were reading Scumbag to decide if that was something we were gonna talk at length about or not. And you dropped that one after one issue. I even gave that one 2 issues. Right, that's just kind of my standing rule. If it's something I've decided I'm gonna read the first issue of, I'll typically give it 2 issues. This one just, I'll read it again, but I'm not excited about it. I didn't hate it. Like, I didn't hate it. It's just it doesn't generate any feeling at all, and that's maybe worse than.
Yeah.
At least the Scumbag was memorable, right? I mean,
The Scumbag was memorable. It has a special place in the dark recesses of my mind that I don't want to visit again.
yeah,
This comic may be some people's cup of tea, but yeah, just wasn't mine.
yeah. So that's this is an odd week for comics. It's not.
Yeah,
You mentioned something earlier before we started the show, and I'm gonna call that back into discussion here on the air.
I can't even remember what I said like 5 minutes ago. So yeah, this is gonna be a surprise to me too, folks.
Right. It's Groundhog Day. He's a new puppy. Everything.
Hey, it's a Monday. Every day is a Monday.
Yeah. Oh, you're that guy. You're back again. Oh. Um, so you said you're starting to feel a little bit of burnout on King in Black.
Yeah, that's if you've noticed, if you guys have been tuning in every week for since we've started this, we've all been very big on King in Black, me included. I don't know if anybody's been bigger on it than Danny because that's right. He's a Spider-Man universe dude. That's his go-to. But I'm starting to feel like it's a money grab. I mean, last week there was a whole lot of tie-ins. This week there's even more tie-ins. I mean, there's tie-ins that are just for the tie-in's sake, like the Deadpool comic. That was just a tie-in for tie-in's sake. The much as I like it, the Savage Avengers, watching Conan kick Deadpool through prison bars to help him escape. That was epic. But it was a King in Black tie-in. There was just a dragon at the end of it. There was when comic companies go for the money grab and they just want to get into your finances and get you to buy everything they put out for the simple fact that they just want to rape you over the coals, not rape you over the coals for your money. I get turned off. I'm done. And I'm still going to read the King in Black, but I'm going to be more selective in what I get because, dang, just don't want to spend my hard-earned money getting everything, and then it just really doesn't have hardly anything to do with the story.
That's the thing right there. That's the kicker for me because a lot of the early tie-ins seemed like they were going to matter. It seemed like this was something that was going to come into play and be part of how this story resolved. And now I'm wondering if even those weren't just red herrings, and money grabs, as you
If
said.
that Namor comic that I've invested 3 issues into, and
Yeah.
I don't get a payout where he at least punches some symbiote somewhere, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah,
I wasted a lot of good time on that stupid comic.
what are they called? The Black Tide now? Is that what they're called?
Black Tide, yes.
If the Black Tide don't do something that is related to Null, then yeah, I'm pissed about this. It's King in Black Spider Ham. You know, I don't need that as a
Right, right.
Um, it I think it is for me. It is burnout because I've read so much, and the main King in Black storyline is great. Venom is great.
Venom's great. Yep.
The Daredevil tie-in is great. There are a couple of others that are worth reading, but there's a whole lot of fluff that just didn't need to be made.
The Thunderbolts, which Thunderbolts 2 will come out this week, that was pretty darn good, too. I mean, that had a direct tie-in. They are in the mix, in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But, and I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan, but there's a Fantastic Four tie-in coming this week. That one I feel like may have a big part in it, but I'm not sure how much more of a part they're going to be able to show than what they've already shown in the main King Black titles or the Venom titles. I think the Fantastic Four is covered.
Yeah.
And the X-Men, they're starting to do some more tie-ins with the X-Men. I love the X-Men, but I feel like their overall stories where they're doing their island thing, you know, their 3-hour tours turned into their own island nation, and now they got a space station. I think that's more interesting right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I wonder, Paul, and this is just me going down rabbit trails. I wonder, like, how would something like Crisis on Infinite Earths, how would that have fared if it hadn't been the first of its kind? You know, if that came along today, could you and I and everybody else with our short attention spans, could we deal with 12 months of a crossover?
I don't think so. I don't think I could. You know, and we're old school readers. You know, we've read a lot. We've been through a lot of crossovers. But
yeah, Crisis was like the ultimate for me. But if I had to sit through 12 months of that story now, I don't know if I could do it.
Which, if I remember, and we were kids when it came out. I don't remember them having a whole lot of other tie-ins. It was pretty much just the Crisis of Infinite Earths. Was there a bunch of tie-ins too?
Oh, dude, yeah.
See, my mom probably didn't buy those for me.
That was like the peak of my comic collecting right there. That was the one thing where I had to have everything that tied into Crisis, and everything tied into Crisis. And it was one of those things where, like King in Black, you know, it was cool to see that it had some sort of impact. If something attacks the whole planet, then you should have a mention of that happening in every comic, right? It should be something that makes its way, you know, throughout everything. But it you know, it doesn't have to be a massive thing. With the DC stuff during Crisis, some of it was just that you would get the red skies, right? And they would just be passing references to things that were going on. You know, they'd mention that the Flash was missing, or, you know, that kind of stuff. But oh yeah, everything tied in at some point to Crisis. And I mean, we were wondering how you wrap up King in Black in 5 issues. We're already 3 issues into it, but I don't know if I'm going to have the attention span for. And it's not the main story. The main story.
No, the main story is good, and the main, like you said, the Venoms, then some of the main tie-ins are good.
Yep.
But they're stretching on some of these. They're really stretching.
They are really stretching on some of these.
I mean, let's be honest. If there's going to be an X-Men tie-in, it really should be Sword.
Yeah.
Pretty much Sword only. You know, not the Marauders, not Excalibur, not any of these others. Just Sword. Because that's their space station. That's their first line of defense.
Like the Marauders one was very, very loose, right? They referenced that they're going to try to save Storm and Cyclops and some of those guys, but then it was just okay. Let's just have them randomly, you know, do some stuff, and
that's what I'm talking about. If it's not a direct tie-in, I don't want loose.
Yeah. So yeah, there it is. We're feeling a little bit of King in Black crossover fatigue, and that's something that as avid comic readers, it happens from time to time. You have crossover fatigue, and this one started off with a bang, and I'm still interested in the main story, but I'm losing my desire to read the side stuff now. So,
Yep.
Future State, I guess because those are all just 2 issues and they're self-contained stories and they're done. I'm not feeling quite the same burnout on Future State. I just know that a lot of those are just disappointing in general. So my
Yeah, I
expectations.
mean, it's not so much burnout because they're overwhelming me. I'm getting burnout just because some of the stories are not good.
Yeah,
That's why I keep staying in Gotham, folks. The Gotham stories have been the most the most consistently interwoven and good.
I agree. I
mean, I like Batman. I'm a Batman fan, but there's other characters I identify more with.
Yeah.
But in this Future State world, the Batman characters are the best ones for me.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we've touched on a lot of different subjects tonight, and we've given you a number of titles that are worth reading, but it was a little tougher this week to come up with what those might be. So we'll see. We'll touch back with everybody later in the week with our weekly roundup episode, and we'll talk about again some of these particular comics and kind of get a feel for King in Black, where it's at, Future State, where it's at. But I hope that we'll really have some meaningful discussion about Radiant Black and maybe Black Hammer Visions and talk about some different stuff. Coming up soon, I don't have a specific date and time yet, but we'll be joined by David Taylor, who is a comic author in his own right. He's a novelist. He's an avid comic fan. He reads a lot of the same stuff we do, and he's just very well rounded on that and nerd things in general. So we're excited to have him in the near future on the show and talk comics with him, because I think it'll be a blast.
Yep. Looking forward to meeting the gentleman via what are we on here? Skype, Zoom, one of these things. Yeah, I'm going to say hello to him.
We've used the same platform now for, this is I think our 10th episode. Hey, 10th anniversary. And Paul has no idea what app he's using to talk on.
Folks, I have like 2 brain cells by the end of the workday, and they're usually fighting and butting heads by this time of night. So you're lucky to get anything coherent out of me.
As to quote Paul Davis from the very first episode of Tales from the Longbox, preparation, folks. That's
preparation.
What's apart from all the other shows. So.
Preparation H. That's not what we're talking about, folks.
All right. Well, Paul, my friend, always a blast to talk comics. Tell the folks goodbye.
Stay classy, folks. Read your comics. Take your vitamins. Say your prayers.
All right. So from the World Class Nerd Crew, this is Tales from the Longbox. Till next time.